We have some brand new CNN reporting for you. Sources telling CNN that Russia has been sending U.S. weapons that are captured in Ukraine to Iran. CNN's Natasha Bertrand has this reporting. Natasha, so obviously the U.S. has been sending a lot of weaponry to Ukraine since Russia invaded. What exactly are the Russian forces doing here?
Yeah, Caitlin, so what we're told by 4 different sources is that the Russians have been capturing U.S.-made, U.S.-provided equipment on the battlefield in certain instances and sending that equipment to Iran. Now, these are smaller items. These are things like shoulder-fired missiles, like Javelin anti-tank missiles and Stinger anti-aircraft systems, and also the NATO equivalent, right? Because NATO is also providing some of the similar equipment. So they're taking this equipment that sometimes the Ukrainians are forced to leave behind on the battlefield, whether because they are overrun or they simply need to withdraw quickly. And they're sending that equipment in many instances to Iran, likely so that Iran can then reverse engineer that equipment so that they can potentially reproduce it and make their own kind of version. Now, the Russians are doing this because they want Iran to continue to help them in their war in Ukraine, right? This is part of the growing defense partnership that we have seen between Iran and Russia, and it really has intensified over the last year, with Iran providing hundreds of drones to Russia, other equipment, and Russia now looking to kind of pay that back to Iran by providing them with these Western types of equipment so that the Iranians can basically take them apart and try to reverse engineer them.
And have they done this before, reverse engineer Western weapons?
Yeah, so the Iranians are actually very adept at this. One of their top weapons in their inventory is an anti-tank guided missile that they actually reproduced from an American anti-tank missile in the 1970s. That it really is a key part of their inventory now. They also were able to reproduce an American-made drone that they intercepted in 2011, making their own version of that, which then crossed into Israeli airspace before being shot down in 2018. So they have proven very capable of doing this. And as one expert told me, that could prove very dangerous to, of course, Israel and other allies in the region who are, of course, very concerned about the threat that Iran already poses, Caitlin.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing that partnership with Iran and Russia getting even closer. Natasha Bertrand, great reporting. Thank you.
New this morning, nearly 500,000 people are without power in Ukraine's second largest city. That's Kharkiv. After Moscow launched 95 missiles over the past 24 hours, killing at least 6 people in Lviv. Ukrainian officials say Russia has been targeting the energy grid, like this power plant in Kyiv. Let's bring in now Mark Esper, the former defense secretary under President Donald Trump. Thank you for joining us, sir. The Ukrainian energy minister says that Russia used they're using a new tactic in this very large-scale offensive against Ukrainians. What did this tell you about the strategy right now? When they're doing all of these cities, they seem to be bombarding them. The strategy seems to be ramping up.
Well, the sense is what was that the attack in the last 24, 48 hours was retribution for an attack allegedly committed by the Ukrainians within Russia. And so the Kremlin's response was to hit them hard with 95-plus missiles, to use a range of ballistic missiles, hypersonics, cruise, drones. And what you find out when you dig a little bit deeper is that they're actually using air defense missiles and anti-ship missiles to attack Ukraine's infrastructure. And it tells you that their stocks seem to be fairly depleted. Now, kudos to the Ukrainians. It looks like their energy infrastructure is back online today. And it just shows you the resilience of the Ukrainian people when it comes to these unwarranted attacks on their infrastructure.
But when it comes to these hypersonic missiles that they're using, they used, I think it's 6 so far in this latest attack. They have barely used anything like that in the entire last year. So what does it say to you that they're ramping up hypersonic missiles, but also the concern, as we were talking to John Currio yesterday, Ukraine has nothing that can knock those out of the sky?
Right. Look, they're very hard to defeat. They travel at 5 times the speed of sound, up to 10 times the speed of sound. Very difficult to knock out of the air. It's a challenge that we in the United States military were looking at as well, because we know that China is also developing hypersonic weapons. So it's going to remain a challenge. The fact that they haven't used more of them is surprising. But this, again, calls for the need to Ukraine to get the air defenses it needs. I don't think they still have Patriot air defense systems. Not that Patriot could defeat hypersonics, but still, there's much more we need to give and provide the Ukrainians in order to beat back the Russian assaults.
Yeah.
Would that be problematic, though, for America, for NATO? By giving them that, won't they, I guess, well, Putin will see it as any act of aggression. Anything that NATO does is an act of aggression anyway.
Well, we've already committed to providing Patriot. We actually have Ukrainian soldiers reportedly in Oklahoma training on the system. But it takes time to train. It takes time to deliver the systems. Another European ally is providing systems as well. But again, these were things that the Ukrainians were asking for months and months ago. And it's a shame that they don't have them yet. Same goes for tanks and F-16s.
But on the F-16s, you know, I'm fascinated by this because we are seeing a real split between the U.S. and Ukraine on this. Because President Biden is saying they've done the assessment. They don't think Ukraine needs them. Zelensky's telling Wolf they could be make or break to the outcome of the war, that they at least want to have the Ukrainian pilots training on them. Is it a mistake for the U.S. not to do it, in your view?
Well, sure it is. You know, President Biden said a few weeks ago, no, 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 no. We now understand that Ukrainian pilots are being evaluated here in the United States to do so. There were also reports coming out of the Munich Security Conference that the United States top general in Europe, Chris Cavoli, Supreme Allied Commander, told lawmakers that, yes, F-16s would make a difference for the Ukrainians. And it's obvious. They need a platform to conduct strikes against Russian elements in Ukraine. It would very much help with a Ukrainian counteroffensive that hopefully will be launched sometime in the coming months. But sure, they need advanced fighter aircraft.
Secretary, this is something that's very disturbing that we're hearing coming out of the war. We have new reporting here at CNN that Russia has been sending U.S. weapons captured in Ukraine to Iran. How dangerous could that be?
Well, look, first of all, absolutely not surprised by this. I suspect, frankly, that the Chinese have some as well, because this is what happens in warfare. Weapons get left on the battlefield, a unit gets overrun, they scoop them up, and this becomes important intelligence collection materials for our adversaries. Now, look, the good news is these things are hard to re-engineer. It's not like you're re-engineering a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we also design into our systems anti-tampering and other type of mechanisms to defeat anybody trying to take them apart and re-engineer them. But that said, we should be trying to find out what the Iranians have and how long it might take them to gain some information about how we design our own systems and how they might go about countering them.